Hi, my name is Father Joseph Mary with the Capuchin Franciscans, and welcome back to our weekly series on prayer. I hope you had a blessed and holy Christmas with your family and your loved ones. Today we'll be looking at one of the chief difficulties of everyone who has ever sought to have a serious prayer life, namely distractions. Distractions in prayer are one of the main reasons that people give up in praying altogether. In fact, the Catechism of the Catholic Church goes so far as to state that the habitual difficulty in prayer is distraction. And so if you've been praying for any short amount of time, you know what I'm talking about. You start reading the scriptures or you're beginning your meditation, and the next thing you know, you're thinking about a test you nearly flunked that afternoon, or what you're going to be preparing for dinner that evening, or even things as silly as, why do penguins look so absurd? These are distractions, things that take our concentration away from the presence of the Lord. Now, in looking at how we deal with distractions in prayer, we have to look at two different ways that people tend to pray. And I call these two different ways prayer light, L-I-T-E, and prayer deep. And so prayer light is when we join prayer to some other mind-absorbing activity. For instance, I know a lot of people who like to pray the rosary when they're driving in their car. I do that too sometimes. But in this instance, we're dividing our attention between two competing activities. We may be praying the Our Father and the Hail Mary, but at the same time, we're weaving in and out of traffic and trying to pass up the slowpoke in the fast lane. I know some people who pray while they're swimming or running on the treadmill or while they're preparing dinner. And there's nothing wrong with praying in this way. In fact, it's a fulfillment of Paul's exhortation in Scripture to pray without ceasing. But it's also a type of prayer that leaves us very susceptible to all sorts of distractions. And so in addition to prayer light, somewhere in our day we need to find time for prayer deep. And by prayer deep, I mean when we find that quiet place where we can be alone and focus all of our energy and attention on the Lord. As Jesus says, when you pray, go to your room and pray in secret. We all need this type of prayer in our daily life, where we say, now everything stops. Now it's time only for God. And so when we talk about the difficulties of distractions in prayer, this is the type of prayer we're talking about. So you sit down, you close your eyes, you focus all of your attention on God, and before you know it, you're again thinking about tonight's dinner. Ugh, why am I having all these distractions? It can be so frustrating. We can begin to feel like we're not even praying, like this is all just pointless. But I want to give you some words of encouragement, some words of consolation, because every saint who's ever prayed suffered through distractions in prayer. There's a story told of St. Bernard of Clairvaux, who was traveling one day with a poor, uneducated farmer. And he noticed that the saint always kept his eyes cast downward while he's journeying along, rather than looking at the beautiful countryside. And he asked him why. And Bernard explained that he wanted to avoid distractions while he was praying. And in response, the farmer boasted, "I never have distractions when I pray." To which Bernard objected, "I don't believe that at all. In fact, I'll make a bargain with you. If you can say one Our Father without a single distraction, I'll give you this mule. But if you are distracted even once, you have to come with me and become a monk." So the farmer agreed and began praying aloud confidently, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." And then suddenly he paused and he looked at Bernard and he asked, "Now does that mule include the saddle and the bridle too?" And Bernard said, "You're going to be a monk." So before entering a cave or a chapel or some other quiet place to pray, St. Francis of Assisi used to first pray, "Worldly and frivolous thoughts, stay here at the door until I return." And then he would go inside and begin his prayer. So distractions are a normal part of our prayer life. The trick is not to focus on the distractions. And so when we notice our mind wandering to something else or notice that we're preoccupied with worry, turn your mind immediately away and go back to the presence of God. St. John of the Cross says that it's like we're standing in the middle of a stream, and all of these little twigs and brambles are floating by. And our temptation is to want to pick them up and examine them. But instead, he says to simply let them float by. Let the current take them and keep our eyes fixed on the flowing river. Or as our Capuchin, St. Padre Pio, wrote to one of his spiritual children, when you have distractions, don't distract yourself further by stopping to consider the why and the wherefore. And so above all, do not be discouraged by your distractions. The most important part of prayer is making the decision to pray. Remember that love is in the will. Love is a choice. And the decision to stop and put ourselves in the presence of God is itself our prayer. God sees our desire to be with him, no matter what feelings or rambling thoughts might be passing through our minds. And God responds to that desire. In fact, many saints have said that remaining in prayer despite your distractions is of far greater merit than a prayer full of concentration and emotion. If you're faithful to prayer, there will come periods in your life when God will lead you into a prayer beyond all thoughts and feelings, a prayer completely free of distractions. But remember, we have to learn to walk before we learn to run. So persevere in your prayer and never allow your distractions to discourage you. Thanks for watching this latest video in our series on prayer. If you found it helpful, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.